Everyone ready?
Everybody ready?
Ready. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nellie Miles. I'm the GBI's Director of Public and Governmental Affairs. This afternoon, we're going to be providing updates in an ongoing multi-agency operation. The operation's goal is to secure the site of the future City of Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. We want to make sure we make it clear that behind me stands our numerous law enforcement partners. A couple of things we want to go ahead and put out there. This is still a very active investigation. So as we move forward with our updates today, we want to make sure you bear that in mind. This afternoon, we'll have GBI Director Mike Register speaking, followed by the Colonel of the Georgia State Patrol, Colonel Chris Wright. So, Director Register.
Thank you, Director Miles, and hey, thank everyone for coming today. As Director Miles said, I'm Director Mike Register of the GBI, and over the last several months, law enforcement in portions of our community have experienced growing criminal behavior and terroristic acts committed by individuals and groups concerning the building of Atlanta's new Public Safety Training Center. These individuals and groups have attempted to disguise their activities as being protests against the building of this facility. The GBI and all law enforcement agencies and our partners here embrace a citizen's right to protest, but law enforcement can't stand by while serious criminal acts are being committed that jeopardize the safety of the citizens we're sworn to protect. Acts such as arson, physical attacks on members of our community, focused intimidation of citizens, the use of explosives, and setting booby traps that have the potential of causing great bodily harm or could possibly maim are not acts of peaceful protest. They are criminal acts that destabilize communities and endanger citizens. As you are aware, a few weeks ago, several individuals were arrested for domestic terrorism in the area around the future site of the Public Safety Training Facility. This morning, the GBI, with other local, state, law enforcement agencies, such as DeKalb PD, Atlanta PD, the Georgia State Patrol, and Georgia DNR, conducted a planned clearing operation to remove individuals who were illegally occupying the area. During these operations, if law enforcement makes contact with an individual, they are asked to leave the property. If individuals are compliant and no other criminal violations are present, they are released. It's what happened on 2 occasions today. At approximately 9 o'clock this morning, as law enforcement was moving through various sectors of the property, an individual, without warning, shot a Georgia State Patrol trooper. Other law enforcement personnel returned fire in self-defense and evacuated the trooper to a safe area. The individual who fired upon law enforcement and shot the trooper was killed in the exchange of gunfire. The GBI is working the officer-involved shooting, and the investigation is still active and fluid. Identification of the deceased will be withheld until notification of the next of kin. We'll take a few questions at the end, but for right now, I'm going to be followed by Colonel Chris Wright of the Georgia State Patrol. Colonel Wright.
Good afternoon. My name is Colonel Chris Wright. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. Just want to give you a quick update on the condition of our trooper. He's currently out of surgery. He's in ICU. His vitals are good and he's in stable condition, but he certainly has a road to recovery, and he's still not out of the woods yet. I want to thank our medics who are embedded with our SWAT team for their quick action. I'm certain that their quick action helped save his life this morning. I also want to thank the Department of Natural Resources who are with us and their quick action to help us extricate him and get him the medical attention that he so desperately needed. And we'll take any questions here at the end in just a second.
Tell us where he was shot, the trooper?
He was shot somewhere in the abdomen area above the pelvic, in the pelvic area.
Do you have a vest?
He did have a vest on, yes.
So some troopers said that there's still people camped out in the forest right now. You talked about, or maybe it was you talked about, how compliance means they will be allowed to let go. what is the threshold for allowing them to stay camped out if they're not?
So I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know if the director wants to speak on it or not. But
Well, they're illegally occupying property. And when we do a clearing operation, it's pretty simple. We ask you to leave, you identify yourself. If there's no other criminal behavior that we observe and you're compliant, then you leave the area. And we made contact with 2 individuals today that did just that. They gave us their name, no criminal activity. We asked them to leave, they complied, and they left. End of story.
But there are still some people camped out there. Is that right?
It's an ongoing situation there, and it's still fluid.
So we know Twitter accounts that are being used by the protesters have been calling for retaliation against police and allies on Friday. Do you have any response to this? Have you seen these posts?
Well, you know, I think that validates what I said originally. I mean, the city of Atlanta is trying to build a public safety training center. And you know, we talk about things across this country like police reform. Building a new training center and giving the police chief in Atlanta a state-of-the-art center to train police officers to be effective in engaging in the community is a great thing for the community. But let me reiterate, there's a difference between protest and what's happening there. And what you just read, what's being tweeted out, I think validates that we're dealing not with protesters, but with criminals.
Can you
Director, can you tell us about the arrest that happened this afternoon around 12:20 when a gentleman was pulled out of the woods? What is he charged with?
It's a fluid situation, but I do know that we have detained 4 individuals. Charges forthcoming, possibly.
Were they connected with the shooting, Director?
We're still in an investigative phase.
Can you
Did
tell
find
us
any other
where?
weapons there? How many weapons were found?
I'm not going to comment on that because that's part of the
Can
investigation
you tell
overall.
us the circumstances in which the shot was fired at the trooper? Was it fired from hiding? Was it fired from a tent? Was it fired from the woods?
The circumstances was an individual confronted law enforcement, and I don't think that he was seen until he fired. I'm not sure, right? But really, it's a simple fact that law enforcement was doing a clearing operation, a legal operation, removing people illegally occupying a property, and someone on the property, as law enforcement came into view, initiated fire on the law enforcement entities, and they returned fire in self-defense. And unfortunately, one of the troopers was shot, and also unfortunately, we have a deceased person that initiated the incident.
Were those the only
Tell us
2
anything
that
about
were
the
hit?
suspect? Does he have some kind of rap sheet?
Not going to comment on that because we have not notified next of kin, and we want to be cognizant that we do that before we disclose the identification.
Director, is there still a threat to safety because there's a huge police presence still in that perimeter?
You tell me. It's been ongoing for several months, and that's why we're out here. If there was not a threat to safety, we wouldn't be out here, and we wouldn't be expending all the resources that we are, all the way from the governor on down to local law enforcement. I mean, it's a partnership. We're here because, number one, we have people conducting criminal activity, illegally occupying a property, but more so than that, they're endangering the community and the citizens around this area.
Why
Are
not
we
let
talking-
a local law enforcement deal with it? I mean, why does the state and the governor are so interested also in this?
Because of the complexity of it. That's why we need partnerships. You know, that's why we work in unison together, because, as you know, almost every department has deficits. We do, locals, states, and we work together in partnerships because we bring a certain capability to the table. And this, you know, and when you look at the complexity of what's happening over here in the criminal behavior, we need the partnership in order to address this in a comprehensive manner.
What's the complexity? I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
Well, arson, attacking citizens, shooting police officers, using explosives, beating people up, then burning their car down. I mean, that's pretty complex to me.
How many people are we talking about here? Is this 20 people, or is it an organized group? Do they have a name?
I'll leave it at this. You have individuals and you have organized groups out there. You have
say-
both.
Sorry, can you say whether any of the 5 or 6 who were arrested for domestic terrorism last month were involved in the raid today?
Not going to comment on that, and I think we've kind of painted the picture, and we gave you information about what happened this morning and what is currently happening, and I'm sure there'll be more to follow. And I'm going to turn it back over to Director Miles.
How do you see this being resolved? If these
At
continue
this
to happen,
point,
hearing
as
operation-
was stated, it is an active investigation, and so we do plan to issue updates. So just continue to follow us. We'll push something out a little bit later. We appreciate you being here to tell this part of the story, because we want to make sure this message is out as well. So we'll get back with you with those updates. Thank
Sir,
you.
one more last question about what is a clearing program? What do you do when you do like a regular clearing?
Ma'am, we'll be providing some more updates later, but we thank you very much.